Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today is video number 30 on my Beginning Gardener series. Now, I was a little hesitant about putting this on my Beginning Gardener series because this is something that I don't recommend to do. Today, we're going to extend our season and we're going to plant our tomatoes really early. This is the very last week in April, and my grow room is still overflowing. My tomatoes are coming out of their pots, they're so big, and I don't want to pot them up. And I just wanted to do a little bit of a test this year and see how early I can extend my grow season with my hoop house. Now, I have some low hoop houses over my beds. They're covered with greenhouse plastic, and I was able to overwinter several vegetables in those. Now, they will not keep freezing temperatures out of that hoop house, they just keep the wind off of it. So I'm going to take several other measures just to make sure these tomatoes survive. And if they don't, then I'm going to learn my lesson. So let's go and see the different ways we can extend our season and plant our tomatoes early. Now, there are several things that are making me feel like this is going to be okay. Number one, we're on the south side of my house, and this hoop house and garden bed is up against the south side of my home. We will be able to cover it with plastic at nights, but we won't need to do that for another week. The temperatures at night are going to be in the 50s, and tomatoes need temperatures that are above 50 degrees at night to survive really well. Now, they could take temperatures down in the 40s, but it starts to stress them a little bit, and you might start seeing stress responses such as blossom end rot happen. Now, to avoid that, what I think I'm going to do, besides having the plastic cover the tomatoes, is I will put a frost cloth in here if the temperatures look like they're going to get into the 40s, and then I will put milk jugs full of water under the frost cloth, and that should keep the temperatures up enough that they should do fine. Now, if we're really going to see really cold temperatures, I may have to take some other measures, but I'm thinking that this will work so far. We're hoping this will work. There is another method that I'm going to go over and show you that we're going to use that works a lot better, but we're going to have to wait until next week, and I'll show you why. This area over here is where I'm going to plant the rest of my tomatoes. Now, the beds need to be leveled still. They need to be filled. I don't have my soil yet, but we're going to plant early tomatoes in this bed right here. And we're going to utilize my Walla Waters. Now, I'm hoping these are still good. I've had these Walla Waters for about 10 years, and I've used them in the past and they work really well. And what you do is you just fill each one of these little cells. There's a ton of cells. They're a big circle. You can kind of see that it's a big circle with all these little cells that you can fill with water. So you just put the hose in them. It's a real pain to fill them up, but you fill each one of them partway up with water, get it standing, and then you can fill the rest of it with water. And then you can close the top and put a bucket over it at nights when it's really cold, or pull the top open when it's not cold. So this is another way that we're going to do next week, that we're going to try and extend my tomato season. And I'll also take you along as I fill these beds. And that, like I said, that's going to happen next week. Now, another precaution I'm going to need to take is, since this is on the south side and I haven't taken the time to really harden off my tomatoes well enough, I'm going to throw the shade cloth over the top of my hoops and give them a little extra protection until they're hardened off and able to tolerate the sun. You can kind of see they're looking pretty sad out here right now. They've been outside all day. Now, these tomatoes have grown quite tall. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the lower leaves off, and we're going to plant these tomatoes as deep as we can get them. I'm going to add a little bit of fertilizer. Now, I know that I just did the video on soil testing, and I have not gotten my soil tests back, but this bed had tomatoes in it last year, and I have not added more compost on the top, so I'm thinking that it's at least nitrogen deficient. So we're going to hedge our bets, and we're going to add some fertilizer. Going to put our little tag right here. These in the front are the Amish paste. Take them out of their pot. They're not root bound. As you can see, they're not root bound. They're just really, really tall and lanky. So the first thing that we're going to do is gently put it down and snip off all of these little leaflets. So I think we're going to be able to plant it at least this deep. Look how deep that is. Let's try it and see how it works. Put this little guy off to the side. Move back the mulch. start digging a hole, a really deep hole. Now I'm not sure how deep I'm going to be able to get this hole. This is a bed that I added a lot of logs to. So the bed is more than half full of logs. So let's see how deep that is. Oh, that should be okay. Let's throw some fertilizer in there. Mix it in. Take the tomato and tuck it in. Now I'm going to put the straw around it to keep the moisture around it. Give it a little bit of water. Then we're going to loosely tie this plant to the stake. Now this is not the final stake that I'm going to be using for this tomato. I usually have PVC pipe that I put over the top of this rebar, but the PVC pipe is too tall for this structure, so we're just going to keep it this way until, for another couple of weeks, until our last frost date is passed, which is around Mother's Day. So I'm hoping that this is going to be okay, and all we can do is try. So let's get planting the rest of them. All my poor little tomatoes are planted. I think they're actually already starting to look a little bit better. They've got some water on them. They're out of those pots, those tiny little pots. And I think they should do fine. So let's get the shade cloth over the top of this and we'll see how they do. So there we have it. We've got our shade cloth over the top that's going to protect it from the blistering sun. We've got plastic underneath that we'll pull down if we need to. If it looks like the temperatures are going to get closer to freezing, which I hope they don't, because I don't know if that's going to, well, this is the end of April anywhere in Utah, so we will get a freeze. But hopefully by putting frost cloth, the greenhouse plastic, and then putting milk jugs with water in them under the frost cloth, hopefully that would keep these healthy and safe. So this is going to be a total experiment, and I'm excited to see how it turns out. Now the worst thing that can happen is all my tomatoes will freeze and I will lose all that hard work of growing those seedlings out. But they're all paste tomatoes, so I'll just have to go find more paste tomatoes when it's closer to time to actually plant my plants. So experimenting in the garden is one thing that we all need to do, because if we don't experiment, how are we going to know what we can do and what we can't do? So this is going to be interesting to see if it works. And I'd love to hear what experiments you're doing in the garden and how they've turned out in the past. What experiments are you going to do this year, and what are your fears and worries, and what are your expectations? It's always fun to hear what everybody else is doing. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you. If it has, I hope you like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.